All right, good morning. Well, it's time to look at our in-depth review of Romance of the Perilous Lands, a role-playing game of British folklore. Scott uh, Malthouse. This is an Osprey Games role-playing game. It is basically modern D20. Again, I call it a hack because you're generally rolling under with a D20. What I like about roll under systems is it's bounded. That the math is generally bounded to that 20 points or 100% in 5% increments, as opposed to constantly just the DC or the armor class of the enemy or the difficulty class of the challenge constantly growing, and we're okay. So a couple things. Osprey books, it's fantastic quality, beautiful color pages. The art is fantastic. The quality of the pages, the quality of the work is it is top-notch production, period. The writing, of course, and the layout. This is so well laid out. One of the things I talk about, if you're not going to make a general or generic system, and you are going to include why you're doing this, why are you creating characters, what world, what you're doing. I think it's so important that the book provides a logical layout that includes all of that information. So again, my lighting here may not be great. I'm sorry about that, but again, this is really a quick, well, I'll say quick, but a book review and a game review. I've talked before about Symbaroum being my favorite modern fantasy game. Part of that subject matter, part of that is the mechanics, part of that is the lore, etc. This would be something I would do if I wanted to continue, if I wanted to play with really well, if I wanted to start a long-term campaign that I was going to run for years with players. This would be closer to that selection than, say, Symbaroum, for a number of reasons. Mechanics being a big one, and the idea of what we're doing in this world would suit, I think, player characters to play your characters long term. Yeah. So again, great content, sets everything up. Again, the artwork to me, and I'm sorry about my glare, but the artwork to me is phenomenal. It really does put you in this period, this time frame, this idea. And again, this is an amalgamation. So the time frame really is a pretty wide breadth of actual, what you might consider history, and it's assumed to all be kind of together from King Arthur to Robin Hood to, but it definitely sets this sense of that era with knights and rangers and druids and bards, and I truly love it. Introduction, great introduction, of course. He walks us through, who are the players, what is the role-playing game, the golden rule, try to have fun, try to make this thing go. And then he gives an example of play. Literally on page 7, we're already getting an example of play. And again, I've talked about how books lay out and where we get information. This is one of those things that, to me, it's just a genius layout. It really was, for Osprey role-playing, to debut their first role-playing games, no better way to set up, because again, I think they would assume you're interested in role-playing games. They certainly don't treat you, but they really do provide a game so a newbie could grab this up and write down, just write in order, really understand what this is all about. They don't take anything for granted. They don't make any assumptions, and I'm okay with that, especially when we're presenting something as if it is its own entity. If this was in a time capsule and we opened up that time capsule at 150 years, there would be no doubt what we're doing, what we're about, and how we do this thing. And it doesn't take for granted in the audience. This is one of the things I really enjoy about games that are going to put the players and the GM in a certain mindset before we even make characters. And we're going to give, what the hell is this background? What's the story? What's the world? What's the history? Why are we doing this? What time is it? And so it gives the ages, walks you through the powers of darkness, walks you through playing in the Age of Valor, which is where we will be in this game. And so we get very quick, I mean, very short synopsis of the timeline of dates. Of course, works us through it. And then, of course, we get to all the way to the Age of Doom. And then we walk all the way through to when we as players and GMs are playing. We're playing in the Age of Valor. And again, brief description of where we're at. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to drop you on your head in the Age of Valor in this this conceit of time and of fantasy. We are playing only humans in this, and again, I am a human-centric game master. I usually run all of my games human-centric. I don't want players playing elves, dwarves, etc. They may be in our game, but they're going to be foreign to our player characters. They're going to truly be. So I generally will even run my D&D games or my OSR games human only. So this makes that assumption. You are humans in a human-centric world where you will face particular mythical creatures and problems. Character creation, again, a nice introduction page for character creation. And then we get over here and he actually does the steps. You're going to roll attributes. You're going to select a class. You're going to select a background. You're going to select a starter. I can't read that. And upside down. Cannot read that. Oh, talents. Note down their history, their money, their equipment, etc. And then, of course, give them an age, give them kind of a short background. Here it talks about the attribute ratings and the modifiers they will add to the situation, right? And then it tells you how to roll those attributes. 4d6, throw out the low, because that's a very common modern D20. Started, I think, with D&D. I want to say 4th edition. Pathfinder has this. Roll 4, drop the low. You are making characters that are going to be heroic, or they're going to be heroes. This, I don't mean superhero-esque, but they're not farmer to fighter. They are actually knights. They're actually, they're actually the kind of characters that would show up in a novel, right? These are the guys that are going to be part of the Knights of the Round Table. They're going to be guys that they write literature, the kind of heroes you're going to read about in books. And then we have optional rules, the array, etc. And it gives the array, the traditional array, which I don't have a problem with. If players want to sculpt the type of hero they want, I have no problem with them taking this array and placing them. I mean, it's why not? The other thing I really enjoy about this, and this is one of the things I really like, that harkens. This reminds me. This is where when I first discovered this and I first purchased it. One of the things I'm sorry about the trying to find a way to block out that glare. And then my camera's junk too, so unfortunately. That this really reminded me of Dragon Warriors was 5 attributes. And so I like games with attributes, but I like games with I'm not a big fan of games with lots of attributes. Give me the core attributes, 5 core attributes. This is how we play the game, right? Might, reflexes, constitution, mind, and charisma. All of them make complete sense. What is might? Well, obviously, what a reflex, well, not obviously, but might is our strength, our power, our right. Reflexes is our agility, our dexterity, etc. Constitution, of course, is our immunity, our endurance, etc. Mind, of course, is our IQ, our education, our wisdom, and charisma is our character's ability to project a particular personality, so to speak, in a positive or intimidating way, I suppose you could say. But again, 5 attributes is all we're looking at. And then we have descriptions of those and what basic skills fall under this, or what tests would fall under this. So when we're making a might check, right, the kind of things like writing, athletics, and writing. So we got these built in under every. So when somebody says I'm riding, I'm gonna jump on the horse and ride across as fast as I can. I'm gonna push this horse to its absolute limits. That's where we call up that we need to make a might writing check. Character skills, but all skills fall under a particular attribute. And again, 5 attributes. We got a handful of skills that fall under all those attributes. And so it makes for about 25 skills. I'm not sure exactly how many, but I could probably count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we got 19 skills in the game. They all are, of course, under an applicable attribute. This is pretty standard practice. Savage Worlds does something like this as well. Talents, of course, are going to be particular things like certain types of martial abilities, etc. Starting money and equipment, and it outlines how much money you 3d6 times 10 for gold pieces, how it equips your character. And then here's our classes, right? Knight, Ranger, Cunning Folk, Thief, Barbarian, and Bard. And again, part of what I love about games, it's all inclusive. This is not meant to be broad. This is meant to be this particular fantasy. It's meant to be set in this world. These are the types of people we're dealing with. These are the types of heroes we're dealing with. And I love the fact that the attributes complement the classes, and the classes complement the setting, the world, the flavor, the themes, right? We don't have something that sticks out like a sore thumb, right? Where you say, I don't know why Necromancer would be in this, right? The Necromancer is what you're trying to bring down, not be, right? If you want to be a half-orc Necromancer, then you're going to want to play broad general fantasy or D&D or some other game written for that type of fantasy. Okay, and again, staying with great art that inspires flavor, we start getting the character, traditional class, their weapon proficiency, armor, etc. Right? We get a great write-up. And then we only go to level 10 in this, which again is one of the things I really like about games like this. We already start out with some assumptions that we are adventurers, heroes trying to aid the world against evil. And there's some assumptions that even at level 1, we are setting out to be heroes for good, and therefore we're gonna level up, and by level 10 we're pretty much looking at King Arthur-esque level, right? Again, all classes have some special things which are fit right into the mold of long-term gaming that is character focused, right? Again, you're going to make a character that you would like, that you believe is going to make it to the end of these campaigns. However, they could die, of course. But I like the idea that you are making a character that from the beginning that you believe in. Similar to Traveler, you're designing a character. Doesn't guarantee you're going to survive. Doesn't guarantee they're going to be successful. But think about it. Think about the background, their deity, who they are, what their makeup is. We don't take for granted how we arm them. We don't take for granted what their personality. And then we get to one of my favorite classes in all of fantasy, the Ranger. Of course, I would argue is my favorite character even in fantasy literature generally. The Thief, which in this particular world works beautifully because we're talking about the kind of literature and the kind of world in which a thief's skills and a thief's abilities become part of these stories. Robin Hood, thieves doing, maybe doing heists, stealing things from the evil sheriff, right, in their castle, breaking into the sheriff's castle to open the gates to let your party in, etc. The Thief fits beautifully in this setting. Again, I've talked before how I'm not a huge fan of the Thief in D&D, in the broad general Dungeons and Dragons dungeon crawl, because they're the only class that actually has the skill stuff that they do these things. No one else does. But in this kind of game, in this kind of world setting, the Thief is a perfect fit. And then we got Cunning Folk, which I love. These are basically druids, magic users. And we'll get around to it in a second. But part of the thing I love about this particular version of the rules is the magic. The magic in this game, for me, is the perfect way to conduct D20 game magic in gaming. You have spell points, and you can cast any spell at any level at any given time, but you have to succeed at it. And there can be backfires. And so that makes spell casting useful to the character, but it also can make it something you have to still successfully do, which I prefer, that they don't just automatically cast successful spells. And if they step way out of the lines and they fail that, there's some backfire. There could be a malfunction of the spell. So they can be heroic, they can step up, they can do almost anything in the game, but they have to succeed at it. And of course, if they really gamble, there's a risk reward to using magic. So I love that. I love that magic is in the game. I love that magic has your character can be useful with that magic immediately. And then but I love that if you're going to push it, you could pay consequences. And that's, to me, how magic should be, allowing players to be heroes, allowing players to utilize these abilities, these powers, these mystical things. But there could be, if you play with fire, you may get burned, is the best way to put it. And again, I love it. We got the barbarian again. The barbarian fits beautifully, right? I mean, just look at the artwork. What kind of barbarian we're talking about, right? We're talking about that Celtic barbarian. We're talking about that. Think about this period, right? If we're talking about King Arthur, we're talking about the borderlands, northern England, Hadrian's Wall. Imagine Hadrian's Wall is what cuts off civilization from the northern Brits, right? The barbarians. And so I love that. We can have this brute that works with the characters to end the evil druid in the north or whatever. And I love having this particular barbarian. This to me is what a barbarian is. They were why Hadrian's Wall was erected, right? Keep these damn pagan threat out of Rome, right? Out of civilization, which is brilliant. And again, I love that. It fits perfectly in this canon, in this lore, the barbarian. And then, of course, we have the bard, which for me is a great fantasy class. It's certainly a great magic class because minstrels and bards existed, and they were this was a thing, traveling minstrels and being able to inspire certain things from your allies with your gifts as an artisan is fantastic. So the bard, again, to me fits beautifully. I could easily see a party with a knight, a ranger, a thief, a bard, and a barbarian being an epic group of adventurers and an epic campaign to stop the spread of evil in the kingdoms. It's perfect. They all fit, and they could all be in the same party. Makes total sense. Total sense. Okay, and then we talk about the background. So you can pick aristocrat, artisan, courtier, farmer, guard, innkeeper. I think there's one or a few more. Oh, no, jester, militia, outlaw, priest. Plenty of backgrounds to choose from. They do impact mechanically, so it's not just talk. It's not just narrative. There's an actual impact on your skills and your starting gear. So that's great. And every one of these fit this era. They fit this style of fantasy. Again, totally complementary work. It says this is what we are. And then every phase of the book, every phase of the narrative, every phase of the rules, the mechanics, they completely complement why we buy this game, why we buy this book, right? There is nothing contradictory, and there's no hand waving that Romance of the Perilous Lands is this thing, but then they hand wave so much, hoping that the GM and the players get the best out of it. Right? Again, back to brilliant art, sets the tone. Right? You're going to see martial combat with shields and swords. You're going to see damsels in distress. You're going to see giant castle walls made of stone. Right? Fantastic. So again, we have a sense of civilization. And then, of course, we have talents. This is where we get into the things like armor expert, armor recovery, bardic resonance, charming, brawler, etc. So these become, I don't say feats, but they're talents, dodging. And again, you have prerequisites, whether you can choose this when you build your character. These talents become things that aid your character in being specialized, right? My character is a knight who's really good with hand-to-hand combat. Brawler, so to speak. Well, you have a knight that happens to be a jack of all trades, right? So we start to sculpt our characters. My knight different than your knight, so to speak. My knight focused on different things than your knight. So we begin to create unique knights, unique rangers, not just all the same thing, right? And again, there's enough to allow you to sculpt multiple class characters your way, but not so much that we are as a GM, you're overwhelmed with, oh man, I got to know all of these feats. Nah, the game, this is it. There is no edit on books. You don't go out and buy Romance of the Perilous Lands Player's Guide. You don't go out and buy Romance of the Perilous Lands GM Guide. You don't go out and buy Romance of the Perilous Lands additional stuff where there's more feats introduced and more classes introduced. No, this is it. This is all you need, and you can game infinitely. In my opinion, one of the best modern role-playing games. And when I talk about this as a role-playing game and not a role-playing book, this is complete, totally complete, right? Okay, then we'll get into character backgrounds. You should actually come up with your age, your deity, and your background. And again, I really appreciate this because we are making assumptions. You're going to make a character that we're going to get to enjoy in a party, in a group for a long period of time. obviously they could be killed, are white play, right? And we got great character sheet. I believe you can get the character sheet from Osprey Games. I've never downloaded it. And again, more brilliant art. I mean, you get this sense that we're going into this temple, right? We've got a druid, and he's inspiring the Red Knight. Here's where you need to go, into the hole of the great temple and face your demons, right? Face the demons. Equipment and encumbrance. Again, armor, proficiency, light. Okay, another thing I want to talk about, that I really appreciate about this. And again, magic. You have spell points. You can cast any spell that you want, but you have to succeed at it, and there's drawbacks if you fail. Okay. Also, armor has soak, which I, again, greatly appreciate. All armor can sustain some damage, so it makes sense if I'm not only wearing heavy armor that I'm somehow harder to hit, which is abstract. I get it. But it's nice to know that if I have amassed the wealth to purchase that plate armor, it does some pretty darn good stuff for me. There's a reason my ranger would never put himself in heavy armor, as I want to be fleet of foot and capable of stealth through the woods. But your knight would definitely think differently about the world and about martial combat, and they would want that plate armor. One of my favorite, most inspirational films of all time is Excalibur, the John Borman film. One of my favorite films of all time, and I very much this inspires the Excalibur style of flavor for me. Dragon Slayer, Excalibur, two of my favorites. They would both fit this theme very well. Again, we got our weapons. Of course, they all have their information: light weapons, weapon proficiencies, medium weapons, and again, heavy weapons. So our weapons are more than just a name and a die damage. They actually have some effects, which is, again, I greatly appreciate. Right? There's a little bit of effect here, which makes having a particular type of weapon important. Right? Adventuring equipment, and I talked about this before. If it's in the book, you're going to need it to achieve certain things. I don't hand wave it. If there's not an equipment list, then that means the game doesn't care about if you actually have a rope and a grappling hook. So when I pick a game like this, and I say to the players, equip your character, and we get to, and they equipment is in the book. I will require they have this equipment when they call upon something. If this equipment is in the book, I won't. It's a hand wave narrative game. If it's here, you need to have it to do particular things. So if torches are in here, you're going to need torches. And if flint and tinder's in here, that means you're going to need flint and tinder to light the torch. I won't make assumptions you can light the torch without flint and tinder. So I've said it before, a game's intent when they provide equipment. It's not just here willy-nilly. This is here. And even if it doesn't describe exactly what the equipment is or why you need the equipment, you should be adhering to why this exists, why you have money to purchase this, why you have encumbrance to carry this. Don't hand wave it away. This stuff's important if you want to have a legit, if you want to play the game. And again, the great thing about this book, it puts it here, but then it doesn't leave you wondering, well, what the hell would I need that for? It does describe the equipment. And if you're going to put a list in and you don't describe why you need a mirror, then there are going to be people who don't understand what the mirror is for, so to speak, right? Okay, then we get into our hospitality, what it costs to stay in inns, eat food, etc. Transportation. Again, if it's in the book, that means you're going to need it, right? When they stop at a village and they're gonna visit the inn, and they're going to barter or know that they need silver to exchange services and goods. It's in the book. Stick to it, right? As a GM, and a player should not make assumptions they can just go to the inn and screw you, I'm going to stay at the inn and get healthy. No, you're going to have to pay your way. Transportation, if you want to hire a wagon, etc., it's here. This hand waves nothing away. It provides everything you need to play long-term, serious campaigns that are character focused, right? You're going to make a character that is meaningful. They may or may not survive, but you're going to make a meaningful character. Playing the game, character attributes, so now we get into the actual game, and again, the artwork here. We see the battlefield, dead knights and their arms, etc. We see a wounded guy here, and then we see the last battle as he drives his pike through a diving. I mean, it inspires. It's something you would have seen in the film Excalibur. Is the final diving knight impels himself on the pike of the Blue Knight, which is to me inspires. I want to play this. I absolutely want to play this. Difficulty ratings, because again, we're going to be making skill checks and level checks, which I love. So even when you get to level 9, folks, it sets, so everything's relative. And I've talked about zero-sum gaming. And again, I'm really sorry about the lighting, but I've talked before about zero-sum gaming. As we level up, it just, everything grows with it, and it's just more and more math. Well, how does he handle that here? Well, as you level up, skill checks still are relevant to your character. And I like that, because one of the arguments about roll under games is at some point my attributes in 18, no matter what, it's always easy to bend bars. I'm an 18 strength. No, this actually has, you have to make checks to bend bars, and it's relevant to the level. So when you're level 1, these difficulties are set here, right? By the time I'm up to level 9, I'm dealing with a different value, which keeps it relevant, because again, hopefully at level 8, 9, 10, you're doing more heroic things. You're not doing the same old stuff that you're doing at level 1, right? So again, it's relative. It is bounded by the D20 to some degree, and therefore makes complete sense. And what are we not doing? We're not dealing with just increasing math to hit higher numbers all the time, right? Okay. Difficulty rating. Edge and setbacks, which is very cool, right? So what is edges and setbacks? It is not the same as, say, Savage Worlds. This is advantage, disadvantage. You have an edge, roll 2d20, take the best roll. If you have a setback, roll 2d20, take the worst roll. So this is their advantage, disadvantage. And again, the art, now we start to see the introduction in the book. Again, what I love about this, the thought that went into the layout of this book is, in my opinion, it's a master class it's a master class, this particular book by Osprey. And Osprey, I think, is already a pretty remarkable company for book production, but it's a master class in how to lay out and present a book. So as we move through the book, we're now getting into combat. We're now getting into how the game works. We start to see the art introduce the next level, right? Oh, wow. Okay. We're not just fighting other knights, right? Now we're getting into higher levels. We're going to be facing trolls, ogres, etc. And things start to get very interesting. The book starts to open up the fantasy view, not just, so even the artwork begins to evolve here, right? And again, that's a genius layout. I don't know who's responsible for it, but congratulations. I think it's a brilliant book. Okay, and then we get into the contest and contested attribute checks, right? How those rules go. And then, of course, using skills with attribute checks. And then we get into saving throws and attribute scores, right? Very simple, 2 pages of those 2 things, and that's it. We move on then to reflexes, mind, how all those things work, constitution, charisma. Then we get into combat and the COR, combat order, time, surprise, actions in combat, casting spells, movement, melee. Again, so as it's laid out in the core, it's called combat order rolls. Core, we then walk you through every phase of what that looks like, all the way to ranged combat, critical hits and fumbles, close range combat, unarmed combat, mounted combat, armor in combat, right? Combat maneuvers, flanking, defense, etc., kill shots. And again, this makes no assumptions of minis, right? So this is very much theater of the mind, ready to roll. Rested, regrouped, cover. And again, if we're using phrases, total defense. So when somebody says, how is this tactical? Because we're not using maps and minis. When I say my character is flanking the knight while he's fighting Bill, we use terminology, and flanking becomes relevant, and then it's applied to game, right? This is why you don't have to have maps and minis. We're using actual narrative, right? We can use this conversation, and there in theater of the mind, there's no confusion when Bill says, I'm trying for a kill shot on the final archer, right? So cover, I'm taking cover, and now we can see how cover affects play, etc. Conditions: invisible, paralyzed, prone. Of course, we've seen this before in games like Pathfinder, etc. Your character can become paralyzed. This is true of old D&D, right? It's just it bothers to explain what that means here as opposed to the monster block, right? Paralyzed shows up in the monster blocks in old D&D games. They didn't put all of these things in the rules, they put them under monster. So it would pertain to the monster's ability to paralyze you or to restrain you or how invisibility would affect you. Later, these things, they just took it out of the monster blocks and started putting it in the rules, because at any time you could be prone, you could be restrained, even if it's not a monster, it could be a rope tied to you, etc. Sleeping, slowed, unconscious, healing and dying, and falling unconscious. Okay, so we have dying, we have aid the dying, we have valor points. Again, these are going to be something you score based probably mostly on achieving particular things in the story in the game via your characterization, your role play, etc. Right, and then we have spending those valor points. Of course, valor points are basically experience points. I mean, some not experience points. Points that you can use, like rerolls for boons, banes, etc. I'm sorry. Then we have experience coming here in a minute. Adventures in the lands, and this is what I like, traveling. This describes how travel works, right? Moving at speed, moving over difficult terrain. It talks about exhaustion, climbing. So again, we're not hand waving exhaustion. Exhaustion is not just a narrative tool. There's actually an effect. Climbing, swimming. Moving stealthily, natural hazards, falling rocks, poison gas, extreme. So again, this should imply to the GM and to the players that they're going to be in situations where they could have rock slides. So you should have really more adventures. It's not just about traveling narratively and then fighting something. It's getting from point A to point B could involve some very dangerous situations, which makes it an adventure, not just a move from point A to point B, kill monster tonight, go home, everybody have a laugh, go home, right? There's a little more to the whole thing. Fog, blizzards, sinking mud. I mean, this stuff just inspires me. I want to GM this right now. I can't wait. Tangleweed, mushroom spores, light and darkness. Again, we don't hand wave anything. You can say it's rules heavy. It's not rules heavy. It's just making sure that these things aren't taken for granted, right? And it's pretty self-explanatory, but the fact that it's in here should inform the players and the GMs who read this and the players who read this book that you shouldn't ignore this stuff. You shouldn't hand wave this stuff. Eating and drinking. Most games fail to even mention why you need rations. Shame on those books for putting them in they're telling you should buy them and they're listed in the equipment, but then they don't have anything about eating or drinking food or sleeping. And I appreciate a game that includes these things. You need to eat, you need to drink, you need to rest. Character advancement, again, what's cool about this is the standard universal experience. So everybody levels up at the same rate, as opposed to a thief leveling up faster than a magic user, or a fighter leveling up slower than a thief, whatever. Everybody gets to level up at the same pace, which I think is, if you're going to do level up amassing of experience points, then let's not punish the magic user and reward the thief, right? Okay. And it talks a little bit about how this stuff works and experience points leveling, quest leveling. So you could level up based on quests, or you could level up based on experience points. I generally would level up based on quests or adherence to sessions. After so many sessions, you guys level up, right? As we start to progress. Hunting and foraging, I've talked about this before too, right? Old D&D never mentions hunting and foraging. These things are assumed in their travels, right? Or in their dungeon crawls. Well, this game does talk about it. And again, if you're going to have a ranger, you might want to have a reason the ranger is important. Hunting and foraging might be easier for the ranger than anyone else. Again, great art as we harken back again to the civilization, right? The hunt with the dogs, bringing down the deer, conflict here in the outside the walls of the city or of the castle. I mean, it's very right. Are these guys poachers with their dogs bringing down something? And this is the king's men bringing poachers to bear. Level 1 game, session 1 in this might be something as simple as the king has asked you to hunt down poachers, and you're going to be dealing with a pretty mundane task. But as you begin the process of becoming a hero, the king can trust to do greater things. And again, spell casting, page 101, there it is. But then we get into how is this different? Healing, curses, scrying, charms, right? Casting, conjuring, spell level, preparation time, spell form, spell cost, spell targeting, replenishing, spell tests. Again, you have to succeed. And then you have points, and then we have our backfire table. This just makes being a magic user a magic class, a cunning folk. I think bards, rangers all have a little of this too. It's just very, very cool. It makes magic so much more playable. You can enjoy a magic class, and you can go for it when you're really desperate, but you could also suffer some, if you use it willy-nilly, there could be some backfire, but it's not so horrible and horrific that it destroys the continuity of why we're heroes, right? You're not going to turn yourself into a puddle of, intestines and your character ceases to exist. No, no, no. And then we have the spells and what it requires, right? So the spells actually have a block, right? You've got to have the discipline, you got to have preparation time, spell form, what it costs you, time to use it, and what does it actually achieve. So the spells are a block. They are all consistent. There's not going to be the spell that basically waves off this stuff. They're all going to fall under this, right? They're all going to be different, but they all have a universal layout, right? This book was meant to be on your shelf and part of something that you would play indefinitely, right? If I'm going to buy a book for 50 bucks, 40 bucks, whatever, I appreciate it treating, to treat me as if this is something that is quite literally an option counter to D&D 5th edition. It's an option that exists wholly and doesn't just take my money and then give me half-assed efforts, right? Okay, level 2 spells. So again, we go all through all the different level spells, right? Level 7 spells. I think where are we at here? Enchanted items. Again, if we're talking about a game that includes some of the lore and mythology of British folklore, like Excalibur, right? Again, we get the items of wonder. So this is, there are some, yeah, see, matter of fact, here's our art, right? King Arthur and the Lady of the Lake presenting Excalibur with Merlin saying, "Take the sword, you fool," right? This is part of the Perilous Lands. This is part of the British folklore, British mythology, right? These particular items become fascinating reasons. Excalibur is in the book. Excalibur has a stat block and a description, right? So now we might be on a quest to recover Excalibur for the dying King Arthur, right? Who knows? Whatever you want to do. We have the treasures, of course, and then we're going to get into the locations. So again, we're going to be talking about a world. There is no map in this, which is very interesting. At least I don't recall there's a map anywhere. I don't think there is. But it does give all the key areas of the kingdom and all the key locations, cultures, and cities. I appreciate this as we play and move, but no map. So therefore, I can kind of define the map as we play, or I can, right? They do give a brief description, I think, of location. But the point is, we have our world presented in text and who's involved in those languages, etc., right? And these cultures. Again, we're not just locations. There's a little bit of culture at all these locations, right? Camelot is in here, of course. I think I can't remember the Robin Hood location, Sherwood Forest, but what is that? I can't remember that kingdom, right? Eastland, etc. So again, we can have locations which we live or start in, and we can progress through the game, right? Sherwood, here we go. Here's Sherwood, right? And again, a great piece of art, the merry men ambushing the sheriff's men, so to speak, right? And again, we got quite a bit. So does this game just leave you hanging? Nope, you get it all, right? There is nothing missing in this. This is a complete work. Another great piece of art, our sleeping knight, Lancelot, right? You know who this guy is, right? If anybody understands, it doesn't have to say anywhere in here, meeting Lancelot. I know immediately this is Lancelot, right? Right? She's heading off to marry King Arthur. And there's this pretty confident, laid back, chilling Lancelot, the kind of guy who ain't afraid of things. He's gonna, he's charming. He's gonna get up, suit up, and then kick the shit out of you, right? So Lancelot he's chilling. He ain't worried about anything, right? And that's so there you go. What a brilliant depiction of Guinevere meeting Lancelot. or maybe Arthur. I suppose this could be King Arthur lounging, right, when he was a young man, but I don't think so. I think it's Lancelot. Okay. But again, I guess you could tell any narrative you want. And then we got our gods, right? Our deities. And this is so important. Again, nothing hand wave, nothing ignored, right? Morrigan, right? Good stuff, man. And then, of course, we have allies of Camelot. This is where the characters, again, we might set up our campaign. You guys are going to be allies of the king, right? And you're going to work toward maybe becoming knights of the round table or whatever, right? Or you could be part of the Merry Men. I think the Iron Hawk are here, the Order of the Fisher King, right? So again, if you don't know your British mythology, your British lore, well, guess what? They give it to you here. They give you an idea of the Fisher King, right? So you can learn it right here. You don't have to be well read in this. You just need to understand how it affects this world, right? So our world building, our setting is well covered. Factions, right? Becoming a member of the Iron Hawks, right? The Black Lance, non-allied factions, which is pretty sweet. The Ward, right? And then we get into very important NPCs. So if you're going to do all this, and everybody's going to wonder who's King Arthur, I wonder how good King Arthur is. Here's King Arthur, right? We got his name, we got his level, we got his age, we got his attributes, we have his skills, etc. So if you want to know how you can present King Arthur to this world in relationship to the player characters, we get these key players: Merlin, Lancelot, Guinevere, Robin Hood, I can't read this upside down, Mordred of the Black Lance, Merlin, Morgan Le Fay, right? We have the key players, key NPCs in the world, and then another brilliant piece of art. So again, you think, okay, well, this is human-centric. That's boring. Yeah, except, these human heroes have to step up and dispatch world serpents, fantastical creatures. And that's where things get crazy, the bestiary. And again, I love this because most of the creatures in this are quite literally going to fit the world. You're not going to have any creatures in this that you scratch your head and say, how am I going to get that in front of the knights? How am I going to get that in front of a thief, a ranger, and a knight traveling the country? It lays out all those things. And of course, every beast in here is relevant to this fantasy, right? And again, great art, right? The black dog, I love it. The bad kid. So I mean, it's just the boneless, the bugbear, right? The crone. I mean, it's so good. All of it inspires, even the names, the crone, it inspires a vision of what kind of game this is going to be. And then we got our giant. Again, our blue knight. This guy must be a badass. We've seen him waylay an ogre. We've seen him waylay another knight on the battlefield with a pike. We've seen him take on the world serpent in one image, and now we're seeing the blue knight taking on a giant. I mean, this guy, dare I say, is King Arthur, right? These are the stories of how the king became something other than what you read in the books, right? Anyway, guards, city guards, hags, they don't take anything for granted. They don't hand wave anything. They all have a stat block that's very simple and a description. Right, again, great art. Here we've got our red knight being strangled out by a watery serpent, and he's bloodied. All he has left is his short sword / dagger, and he's fighting for his life against the world serpent. This is a brilliant book. Okay, pixies all the way down. Then we got a ranger firing upon a what looks like a pixie, a selkie. Trows, Ersks, werewolf, right? Wolf, witch, and yellow hound. Skimmy, not yellow hound. Was it Yeth hound? Excuse me. And then again, we have another brilliant image here of the knight on the road being asked, a damsel asking this black knight, to help her or aid her, right? Guides for game masters. And then we do not hand wave away anything. We have a very short guide for the game master. It's about 10 pages or so. 251 pages of absolute gaming book perfection. In my opinion, it's the perfect. It's just perfect. Now, if you don't like this kind of fantasy, it's not your thing. Well, of course, duh, right? But yeah, I'm hard pressed to point out another so-called OGL D20 licensed game that is not that is this good, that is this well written, this well put together, this well thought out. Every rule complements the kind of fantasy you're going to be doing. Every class complements it. Every beast complements the world. Our NPC, our big NPC stat blocks suggest what the world looks like and where your characters may get to as you adventure. Magic, who can use it, how much they can use of it, is it guaranteed, and could there be setbacks? Completely thought out, top to bottom, perfection. I don't do this with every game. I talk a lot of times about games I really like. For years I've made videos expressing my joy and what I like about even simple games. But I don't do book looks or walkthroughs like this unless they are, in my opinion, AAA masterpieces. And Symbaroum, I've done one of these, and now Romance of the Perilous Lands. I wouldn't do it if it was not remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. So thank you for watching and listening. Hopefully this inspires people to look into this. I think you can get the PDF as well. Hopefully this gives people an alternative to the generalized mass production of the world's most popular game, where you got to buy 3 books and then you got to buy all the other stuff, and then you got to kind of go through and you got to sit down with a group of people and say, this is the kind of fantasy we're doing, and you're gonna have people argue with that. And it's a complete package that defines it all for the GM and the players, and there should be no conversation if everybody read it, looked into it, created their character. There should be nobody scratching their head saying, what are we doing here? And why can't I be a half elf? Why can't I be an elf? Because this is what we're doing, right? No, I'm not going to waste my time with a long handout session 0 package to tell you in D&D, we're going to do this, but we're going to use D&D. Well, choose something that actually is attempting to be a thing. If you don't like it, that's easy. You just put it away. But and it defines everything you would want, and that informs the players what kind of game we're going to be playing, not just what world, not just what setting, not just what themes, but how the game is going to be. Yes, you need to rest. Yes, you need to eat. Yes, you need to pay to stay at an inn. Yes, you're going to need flint and tinder to light your torch here because it's on the equipment list. So, right. Okay. Yes, barbarians. This barbarian could be rolling with a knight and a ranger because they've all come together to face a greater evil, right? And it's fantastic. So thank you. Good day.